So the Starbucks Workers United campaign, they are absolutely giving us a masterclass in inoculation.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We've talked a lot about organizing and strategies for organizing your workplace, and few steps in the process are more important than inoculation. What is inoculation? Inoculation is basic, and I think that this is a term that we're more familiar with in the pandemic than we ever have been. When you're thinking about it in terms of diseases, inoculation, a vaccine inoculates you against the actual disease by either giving you contact with a less serious form of the disease, or by giving your body like a dead version of the virus, or in the case of the mRNA vaccines with the COVID, what they do is they basically tell your cells how to create the antibodies to fight COVID. And so these are all ways of inoculating your body against diseases. Well, in an organizing campaign, inoculation works in much the same way. You have to tell when you're organizing your coworkers, when you're talking to them, trying to get them involved in the union, get them to become active in their union, inevitably, the boss is going to be against you. Almost invariably, your boss is going to be against you, and they are going to try almost invariably the same tactics. There are going to be very similar union-busting techniques across all manner of workplaces. There are going to be some differences, some different emphases in different workplaces, but a lot of it's going to be the same. It's going to be intimidation, it's going to be lying, and it's going to be retaliation. And so, when you're talking to your coworkers, let's say you get them involved in a union campaign, but you don't tell them to expect what's coming. They have no idea. They think they've always worked with their boss, and their boss has always been really nice to them. And so they think that, oh, wow, I'm organizing a union. My boss is going to be fine with it. He's not going to do anything. And then boom, you're facing a reduction of hours, or you're facing a disciplinary hearing for the first time in your employment at the company. Or your boss is telling you lies about how, if you unionize, you could actually lose benefits. And most people don't know much about how collective bargaining works. They don't know that there's just so little public knowledge about unionism and about collective bargaining and about what your boss is going to try to do to keep you from those things. So what do you have to do as an organizer, as somebody in your workplace who's trying to bring your coworkers in? You have to tell them what to expect. You have to give them a little dose of what the boss is going to give them, right? They need to know what to expect going into this thing. And that's what inoculation is. It's just telling people that, okay, when the boss knows what's going down, that we're a union, they're going to potentially cut your hours. That's happening at Starbucks across the country right now, illegally, in my opinion. They're cutting hours for workers, even in workplaces that are not unionizing, just in a wholesale retaliation against their entire workforce. At the same time as they're trying to bring out this campaign to say like, oh, look at how much we're doing, while they're cutting hours for workers across the board. Or maybe you need to tell your coworkers that, okay, look, you're actually not going to lose anything in the collective bargaining process, because you start from where you're at and then you bargain on top of that. It's actually illegal for your boss to try to punish you and try to take away things that you have currently as a punishment for unionizing. That's illegal. They can't do that. Further, even if it wasn't illegal, you only get a union contract if you vote for it. Why the hell would you vote for a pay cut? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense at all, right? But these are things that most people don't know. Most people don't know those things. And so you have to make sure that your coworkers are educated. And
Right.
and it's important because if you're not the first person to tell your coworkers what to expect, if your boss is, that's very difficult because first impressions are important. And if your boss says exactly the same thing that you said they would say, then it shows that you know what you're doing. It shows that the union that you're working with knows what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, if you show up to a captive audience meeting and you already know all of the talking points, that is so much better than getting, caught off guard by either the sweet talk or the lies or some mixture of both that you may get from management.
Right. So the Starbucks Workers United campaign, they are absolutely giving us a masterclass in inoculation. Sarah Mughal is a shift supervisor and member of Starbucks Workers United at the Hopewell Starbucks in Pennington, New Jersey. And she wrote for Labor Notes about how inoculation has helped baristas at her store as they face pressure from management. They inoculated their coworkers so well that management literally canceled their second scheduled anti-union captive audience meeting.
Nice.
That's amazing. She writes that after corporate failed spectacularly in the first captive audience meeting, they decided to cancel the second, saying that they had, quote, no new information to share with us. We haven't had any since, even though many of us have actually requested another, as we have plenty of information to share with them. That's just amazing. That is fantastic. Outstanding. No notes. I mean, it's really, really cool. And she wrote about, and I would recommend y'all go read that and y'all further subscribe to Labor Notes and support them. Go to their conference in June. Really great outfit. Really great stuff. Basically like blogs from union members across the country or some of the things that they put out.
Trainings. Including trainings on topics like this in terms of inoculation and the early parts of an organizing campaign.
Right.
And everything, including, grievances, how to file
Yeah.
a grievance, what's a good one, what's a bad one. So, if you're listening to this and you don't yet have a union, or you're a gig worker, you're unemployed, you're a student, and it doesn't seem practical right now, there's not a union, in your horizon, one thing you can do right now is subscribe to Labor Notes. Even just subscribing to the email newsletter and following them online is a way to be connected to the movement and to sharpen your knowledge.
Right. Yeah, it is really, really good stuff. And she wrote about that captive audience meeting that went so poorly for management and so well for the workers in Labor Notes as well. So after throwing in the towel on that failure, on the failure of captive audience meetings, they moved on to the next tactic. In their book, which Sarah writes, Starbucks Corporate decided to skip to the next tactic, one-on-one meetings between one barista and a manager, sometimes multiple managers. The idea seemed to be that separating us would break our solidarity and make it easier to lie to us. But once again, they found that Hopewell baristas were ready to see through their lies, push back, and support each other. She writes further, for our first round of one-on-ones, these meetings were framed as, quote, reviewing our benefits. Basically, they intended to tell us how great our benefits are and that they could take them away. If you think about it, a manager said, you've got a venti cup full of benefits. She said condescendingly, to make room for more, you'd have to empty some out first, right? And see, here what she's doing is she's implicitly threatening to take away some of the things that they have, which is illegal. It is illegal to say that we're going to take away some of the benefits that you already have because you're unionizing. That's an unfair labor practice.
Right, and whose decision would that be? Because, again, the workers and the union are not going to propose a cut in benefits or a cut in pay.
It would be
only the
bosses.
company would. So it's, again,
Exactly.
we see this time after time where the company tries to deflect their own priorities as if it's the fault of you as a worker organizing.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so the barista responded by asking point blank, are you saying you'll take away my benefits? The manager saw her mistake and backed off with, "No, of course not," and moved on. And this is, it's one thing to be in which is already, being in a captive audience meeting, it's one thing to be in that situation and be able to kind of bounce things off of each other and play off of each other's energy and support and solidarity and words, right? It's one thing to be in that environment and engage in what is a collective action, pushing back against the lies and the deceptions and the threats from management in this big environment where you've got 20 people in the room at the same time. There's a lot of confidence that can be had in numbers, but it's even more impressive that the baristas are still able to do that on their own. That's amazing. That's really goes to show how well they have been inoculated, how much they've been talking with each other, how much they've been, these are just like normal people, right? Sarah's not a Workers United staffer. This barista is not a Workers United staffer. These are just baristas. I say just baristas. That's all work has value. But what I'm saying is that they're not labor relations experts, right? These are not people that have dedicated years and years, even somebody like me. They aren't people that have dedicated almost half a decade to learning about this stuff. These are people who have just been in the movement for a few months, and they're already to this level where they can push back on what management is saying with total confidence in what they're saying and total confidence that their union, that their brothers and sisters are going to back them up. It's just so cool. So how did they accomplish that? Sarah writes that they didn't take into account the months of long hours we've worked together day after day, struggling together to successfully run a busy store with the few resources the company chooses to give us. In the nearly 3 years I've worked at Starbucks, the resourcefulness and teamwork I've seen in my coworkers have truly been staggering. And that speaks to the benefit that can come from actually knowing your coworkers. A lot of it isn't even necessarily the inoculation that they've been doing with respect to the union. It's just been working together and trusting each other through like crazy shifts, sitting together, shooting the breeze at 2 or 3 in the morning after your store closes, or 4 or 5 in the morning before your store opens. Stuff like that is really, really important in building solidarity.
I think, and you're right on, man. It gets back to building relationships and building relationships that are built on trust and solidarity and, just having each other's backs. And I think there's so much in our world, in our society, and certainly in our economy and workplaces that is designed to prevent that.
Yep.
We are supposed to be acting individually. It's supposed to be a dog-eat-dog world, and the more we can work together and look out for one another, the more powerful we are. And, something I've said on the show before, and I don't even know where it came from, is that solidarity is a social expression of love. It's love that we act out in society, in our workplaces. And I think there's something, not to be too preachy here, but there's something spiritual about that, about having each other's backs, and as you said, being in the trenches together, whatever your job may be, whether you're dealing with customers or you're outside working hard, working up a sweat, whatever job you may do, there is something just so powerful about the shared experiences you have, the shared interests you have, and the shared struggle that you're enduring together. And the more you come together, the more powerful you are. There is truly strength in numbers. And I think these workers at Starbucks are showing all of us how it can be done. And as you said, these are not experts. These are not people who went to school for this. They are rank and file workers, everyday people just like us, who've recognized the power they have in coming together.
Yeah, it is. It's really inspiring what these people are doing, what the people in the Amazon Labor Union are doing. It's amazing. It's amazing. They're doing lots of good things happening in the country.
And that's how change is going to come. And that's how change has always come in this country. It's from the bottom up. You know, of course, we talk about politics on this show. We interview legislators and political candidates on this show. But by all means, please go vote. You know, vote every 2 years, vote every 4 years, every election that you can vote in. But this is a prime example of how we can change our lives, how we can change our communities, and take our destinies into our own hands.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.